We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Looks like the rain has gone.
G'day, and welcome to the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove that there is more than just one way to be a man. I'm your host, Brandon Clift, and I want you to consider, before we get started, the greatest achievers throughout history. Think about the explorers, right? So Edmund Hillary, the first man to plant his flag on top of Everest. Or what about the incredible athletes that defied the odds? Right, defied their upbringings, defied injury to achieve remarkable things, records that have never been broken? Or what about the researchers, the scientists, the cognitive geniuses that have been able to send men and women into space or to cure disease? Now, naturally, when we think about these remarkable human beings, sometimes we can put them on a pedestal. Now, of course, this could be to give them due credit, but in doing so, we sometimes do that and inadvertently separate ourselves from them. Now, this does a couple things. Not only does putting people up on a pedestal sometimes make it a little bit tougher for those individuals to be seen as the fallible human beings that they are, but on the reverse, sometimes by putting someone up there, we inherently separate ourselves from being able to achieve the same things that they have. So what this does for us is we can then make excuses as to why we can't achieve the same things. Or we make excuses for them. They had the genetics, they had the resources, they had the opportunities. All the while, we are cutting ourselves off from what it's going to actually take to achieve the things we want to achieve. Now, why am I talking about all of this? Well, today's guest, Gabriel Cordell, achieved something remarkable. He is the first man in history, the only person in history, to roll a standard wheelchair across the United States. We're talking 3,100 miles, California to New York, just using his arms. Now, I found out about Gabriel through the documentary Roll With Me, which documents the entire journey from entering into sobriety to making his way all the way to New Hampstead, New York, when he achieved this feat. And I thought, yes, I could interview him about everything from mindset to success to his message about inspiration. And yes, there's going to be elements of that in this interview. However, where this interview might differ from others is Gabriel does a phenomenal job of giving us an insight into life after the credits roll, after the speaking engagements, after the national tours. He gets to show us and share with us that, you know what, some of the struggles he had prior to the documentary coming out and achieving such an incredible feat, yeah, he still has to deal with those. But what's different today from then is that people that watch the documentary, people that meet him, people that hear him speak on stage, put him on a pedestal, right? Not only that, he knows he has hit the top level of human potential for himself that he may never hit again. So what does life look like in between now? Between the lows and the highs, where can we find life when we've achieved something that remarkable? So this is an incredibly touching time that I get to spend with him, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to share this with him. And so I hope you guys get some value out of his story. And of course, be sure to check out Roll With Me on Netflix. Enjoy. G'day guys, Brandon Clift here from the Mankind Project, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 51 of the Mankind Podcast, where each and every week we prove to you that truth and vulnerability equal power. Now, this episode is for anyone facing immeasurable resistance and adversity in their life. Now, Gabriel Cordell, who's our guest this evening, is the first man to roll his standard everyday wheelchair across the United States. A 100-day journey that would see him cover 3,100 miles, cross 12 states, climb over 70,000 feet, burn through 198 pairs of gloves, and with just the use of his arms to push him forward. And what's even more incredible is that he was only 8 months sober when he embarked on this mission.
Now, you can watch his incredible journey on the Netflix documentary Roll With Me. But this evening, I'd love for you to check in with us and join us for a fun discussion where we learn more about the man himself, Gabriel Cordell. Gabriel, mate, tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome to the show.
Right, and thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you for wanting to share my story. And I do have to correct you. You know, even though I'm not that good about talking about myself, you shorted me one state, Brandon. It's 13, not 12.
Good. We're going to get to that because before we started, I was just sitting here going, wow, Gabriel, all these things you've accomplished. And I could see you just kind of being like, oh gosh, stop. You know, like it just letting all of that land. You're so humble and which is refreshing to see for someone
Yeah.
who's achieved something so great. So I reserve the right to shower that praise and I will correct myself to 13 states.
Thank you, sir. That's the one thing I will say.
Yeah. But yeah, mate, tell us a bit about yourself. And yeah, we'll get underway.
Well, just you know, it's been life has been a whirlwind since 2013, and you know, so obviously, you know, with the whole coronavirus, you know, the world shutting down and everything stopping, uh, but you know, I've been able to do motivational speaking, uh, traveling around the country the last couple of years and just sharing my story, which has been incredible. The response has been incredible, and you know, just I'm living in Los Angeles right now. I also am an actor, and you know, just glad to be here, man, and hopefully more than anything, you know, entertain people, give them a nice, good, fun show to listen to, but more importantly, you know, hopefully connect with some people, you know, that are might be struggling, you know, especially in today's times, and they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, and you know, maybe we can, you know, ease their minds a little and make them realize that there is hope, um, and it's all within us.
Mm. You know, that's such a pertinent message. Back in 2013, when you took on that journey, it's just I think the lessons from that are just as pertinent today, if not more pertinent, to understand that you know it starts with us to find the resilience to move through what has been a very challenging year for many people.
Yes.
Um, which makes me curious. Obviously we'll get into some of the the documentary and some of those things, but more than anything, I'm curious, like what is like the overall narrative? You know, if we're talking you being an actor and you know following scripts, what would you say is like the overall narrative for your life up to this point, and how does that relate to how you get up in the morning and approach each day?
Well, you know, pre 2013, my narrative in life was a lot different, obviously, than it was post 2013. And you know, today my narrative is the power of the human will. You
Mm,
know, it's understanding that we have all the abilities and capabilities to achieve whatever we put our minds to, right? But when I say that, right, here's the thing: it can be misleading. Okay, not that I don't believe that we all can achieve anything we accomplish, anything we, you know, put our minds to. But when I say that, my role and all my other roles depended on me, even though I needed the help to accomplish whatever goal it was. It ultimately depended on me, whether or not I finish it or not, right? So anything that depends on you solely, right, to finish, I believe with every ounce of my being that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. I mean, anything, right?
yeah.
But it gets a little tricky when you have to rely on other people to make that decision for you. Like being an actor, you can be the greatest actor, you can do all the preparation, have all the skills, but if one person does not see what they need in you,
Mm,
then it doesn't matter. right?
Yeah.
And then you, because I know many people in the entertainment industry who have given their life and they've done everything they possibly could, and just their break just never came,
Mm.
right? Because they had to rely on someone else.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that, when I talk about it, about accomplishing anything you want, if you are the judge, the executioner, and the executioner of it, then
Mm.
anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people fall into, and where I don't want to give that misleading message,
Mm.
because I've been acting since 1993, and I still haven't gotten my big break.
Mm.
And I busted my butt, and I've taken 2-year courses, and so it's that's the one thing that, but if you
Mm.
truly believe, then it is possible.
Mm.
That's my narrative in life,
Mm.
and most important, to affect as many people as you can in a positive way before your time is up.
Mm. A- And perhaps that, yeah, there is a different way to look at those actors, the people that I'm sure you've known, you've spent time with and work with, that you probably saw all the potential and talent in the world that they possess to make it big, who just don't make it. Perhaps that actually isn't going to be their defining role in life.
Right.
That was just merely a step, be it a lateral step or be it just slightly off to the side, towards what could be their greater role, whether
Right.
it's in their communities or as a parent, or through possibly something they could create that might serve others. I like that. I like where you come from, of this place where we can't always control the overall narrative as far as external things that happen to us. Bad things are going to happen. There's going to be days where we wake up and it's raining outside. We can't control that. But in a way, and these are my words, correct me if you disagree, but we essentially hold the pen, and it's our choice to write the story of
Right.
our own lives. We can't leave it up to chance. We can't leave it up to fate, because fate is really a horrible writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which in a way leads me, exactly leads me to another part of your story. Whereas, 1992, I don't have the exact date, October 17th.
Yes.
You're on your way to an audition and you get T-boned in the
My
car.
first.
Your first audition.
My first.
Wow.
Right. And what's so funny about this, I tell you about an actor.
Yeah.
Mike, right? When you said, sometimes maybe the acting isn't your overall purpose. Maybe it's just a conduit to where you're really supposed to go. And acting was what I thought my purpose was.
Yeah.
And I studied 2 years, workshops and classes and seminars, and I was ready, and I was excited, and I knew what I wanted to do in my life, and no one was going to stop me. And I went against my parents,
Mm.
and I was the black sheep, the unconventional,
Mm.
where all my friends got married and have jobs and had families. Acting was my thing, and I was ready. October 17th, my
Mm.
first professional audition for Vidal Sassoon hair product. And and yeah, it was the one day where, if you've ever been to New York, you don't want to drive in New York City.
Mm-mm.
So New York has a lot of mass transit. I took mass transit every single day for those 2 years. Literally, the one day I decided to drive into the city
Yeah.
was the one day I got into my accident.
Mm.
And what the hell's God trying to tell me here? Don't be an actor. Forget this. This is not your path. And and I believe that, after my accident happened, I always say that my accident was an accident, but it wasn't by accident. And it was my duty, my obligation, my purpose to know why this happened to me. And it took me 25 years.
Yeah. And in those 25 years, you know, we get the luxury of being able to see, you know, the latter stages of the process. I don't want to see the end result, because you've got plenty of life, and I'm sure a huge mission to execute in your life, continuing
Right.
ongoing. But you know, we get the luxury of seeing this lens. But you know, there were those close to you who saw some pretty ugly truths, I'm sure, in those 25 years of, you know, you talk a lot in the documentary about your addiction, you know, and using. And you know, at the time, you know, we talk about personal responsibility, and you know, the buck stops with us. But in those moments, I can't imagine just the feeling of powerlessness, feeling like the doors might have been closed, the options just weren't there. Was that did you experience that through you know, through your addiction, and through coming to grips with, I guess, this thing that had happened at the time to you, but not knowing that it actually happened for you?
Right. um, I I never felt like the victim.
Mm,
Never. Even when my accident happened to me, I never felt like the victim. Even when I was in the midst of my drug use, I never felt like the victim. I never felt like this is it.
mm,
There was going to be nothing else. I'm going to just be a guy who ended up a paraplegic in a wheelchair at the age of 22. And, you know, that was going to be the narrative in my life. That was never, ever the, the, uh, the situation. I always believed
mm,
since I was a young kid, you know, I mean, clearly, vividly, had to been at least 7, 8 years old. I knew that my life meant something.
yeah.
I knew that there was a purpose for me being born and being put on this earth. And as bad as I was, and as bad as the things I went through and I put myself through, you know, the accident happened to me. The abuse, I created it.
Mm,
And but never ever felt that that was my narrative. I always knew that I was in line for greater things.
mm,
I just had to let life play out.
yeah.
And you know, but at some point you got to be like, okay, I'm running out of time here,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what I did, you know, and that's what I kind of did after my 5 years, because I my drug use started when I was 13 years old, not when I was 38 years old,
Mm,
you know, but where that became my identity for those 5 years. Um, I just knew that it was a phase. It was a long phase, but it was just a phase, and that I will get out of it. And besides the fact, uh, when I was 18 years old, I made a promise to myself that by the time I turned 45, I was going to do something extraordinary in my life. It was just something that a promise that I made because of how I felt about me, because how I felt about what my purpose is in life and the impact that I can have. By 45, I gave myself. So at 42, the time was running out, and so I had to kind of gear it up in a sense. But it worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
mm. Yeah, I don't peg you for someone who ever has, or ever will do anything in halves. I'm sure whether it's whether it's substances, or whether it's, you know, immense physical feats, I'm sure you gave it your all in all of it. And
Yes, yes, I
yeah.
was a very good drug addict.
Well, mate, there's something, because in the Mankind Project, you know, we do a lot of support and work for men that have to process shame around sex.
Mm,
We've actually found that a lot of trauma and a lot of perpetuated damage is done by men who harbor sexual shame. And in the beginning of the documentary, you spoke about that, you know, predominantly, or the main reason or only reason why you were using was to get some form of feeling or sensation that you couldn't get from below your chest down.
right.
losing that ability, those kind of sexual abilities, but you still had the urges, you still had those feelings. And so I'm curious now that, from, let's say, 2013, right, when you achieved this feat onwards, how have you processed those feelings towards your sexuality and expressing it and moving through it? Yeah, I'm curious if you can shed some light on that.
It's quite interesting that you ask that, because today, as we speak, right, as we speak, it's still a struggle, right?
Mm,
Um, it's struggle in a sense of me thinking, right, thinking about it, not in the sense that the struggle of fighting the actions of going through with it, but it's the struggle of the mind, and whatever reason convincing yourself that hey, you've done good. I've been good. I haven't done anything for 8 years. I haven't done anything for 5 years. I'm going to reward myself every time my girlfriend goes away and I'm left home alone for more than 4 days. I automatically go to, I'm going to call my dealer. Automatically. It's just a default mechanism in my mind. And my girlfriend went away these last 2 days, and she's going away for a week this time. And the moment I know that she's going away, my brain starts working and starts working. Even though I've been clean from that lifestyle for 8 years, it doesn't matter. It's constantly going. And the whole sex thing, that doesn't go away, right? That doesn't go away. And I've lived long enough and dealt with it long enough where the only other kind of satisfaction I can get is from the drugs
mm,
when it pertains to sex. Even though I don't get that physical sensation or anything, just the mental part of it. Um, but but yeah, it's still a struggle in the sense that I have to talk myself out of it.
mm.
But talking myself out of it is just, don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like it's 8 years, and you have a beautiful family that you created, and you don't want to let them down. You don't want to think about the kids and then think about you doing the drugs, and a lot of reasons why I don't, and so I don't. But it's definitely still a struggle.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
that it's kind of like that powerful question, right? Of what's at risk? What's
right,
at risk if I do? What's at risk if I don't? And
right,
having to live with both both
right,
potential outcomes depending on the one we choose. And this is really refreshing for me to hear, because I feel like I resonate with you in many ways around my desire to eat the whole elephant at one time. I like to really go for things big. I don't really like to do things in halves, and I can get caught in this trap of, when I achieve X, I will feel better. These
right,
problems will be solved. When I do these incredible things, that I'm not going to struggle with these same challenges that I've had for the past couple of years or my whole life. But I've summited mountain after mountain and drugged some of those things with me, some of those demons, some of those shadows, whatever you want to call them. And this is just a really human moment for me to have you share that with me, to know that, you didn't just push your wheelchair across the nation and all your problems were solved like that. That the human journey is to move through suffering, but to choose how to react to it in many ways.
right. Can I be honest with you?
Please.
Okay. I mean, I always hate that cliche. Can I be honest with you? No, I want you to lie.
Yeah. Spit it
um,
out.
um, After my journey,
Hmm.
my first role, my across the country, it actually became harder,
Hmm.
right? Because 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 pre-roll, I still didn't reach my potential, and So the weighing of if I do this and if I don't do this,
Mm,
like there wasn't really that much in between, that space in between, whether I did it or not. Like
mm,
weighing the good, the positive. I mean, not that there's anything positive, but in your own mind as an addict, weighing the positive and the negative of why should I do it, shouldn't I do it? After my role, because I knew what I was capable of doing and the inner strength that I knew that I found that I had inside me just made it all that more difficult with the decision of yes or no. Because if I say yes, then the feelings I would have if I did it would be so much more greater because of the person I know that I am today, as opposed to if I decided to just say I'm going to do drugs, I'm going to go and call my dealer before my role, I wouldn't have felt so bad because I didn't feel that great about myself to begin with.
right.
But
Stakes are
now,
higher.
but now because the stakes are higher and I know the impact I've had on people all around the world with my story of overcoming this, and now I'm going to go and do it,
Yeah.
it heightens everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heightens everything. And so the higher is even higher, but the lower is even lower.
Lower.
If you can even get lower, you know.
Yeah. It's experiencing like the full range of the human experience, but you basically just push the bar up
Right,
higher for
right,
yourself.
right. You
Yeah.
know, and so
Mm,
but it doesn't, you know, so it's tougher now
mm,
because if I was to say, yeah, you know what, I don't give a shit. No one knows. No one's gonna find out. I'm by myself. I'm just gonna do this. Just the amount of just the fact that I have these thoughts that I still want to do it is brutal to me because it's like I'm failing as a human being right now. I'm failing everyone who I inspired because I have these thoughts. But God, man, I'm just a human being. I'm just a human being that has many thoughts go through their mind. But I just won't act on it today, as opposed to pre-roll. I would act on it.
gosh, I'm curious. Does it make it harder when you go through those challenging moments, those challenging thoughts, and then are just getting bestowed upon with praise and you're amazing and people putting you up on a pedestal? Do you find that those struggle moments can feel more lonely because there's all these people that put you in their mind of impeccable, never makes a mistake?
Right. It is because you don't want to be, I don't want to be this false, hypocritical, you know, man that in one moment, you've created such inspiration
Mm,
for the world, but on the other hand, you're just being a selfish, miserable, you know,
mm,
man,
mm.
person that just doesn't that has nothing to give to the world.
Yeah.
Um, so it's definitely a struggle, in that sense. It's hard to live up to that
Yeah.
every day, to try to those 3.5 months. Well, even though the whole entire thing with the training and then the actual rolling was a year, but those 3.5 months I lived the greatest life that I can possibly live as a human being, right? Talking about the potential
Yeah.
physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. I was at the zenith of it.
Mm,
And once you experience that, it is it's almost near impossible to stay up there,
yeah.
to stay at the top. And you have to convince yourself that, you know what, you're worthy of whatever it is that people want to say about you because you've done the work.
Yeah.
And but it
Yeah.
still doesn't make it easier.
No. And to be okay with living in the middle, not having those expectations possibly projected onto you by others, and you just being like, hey, I'm Gabriel on a Tuesday right now.
Right. And that's
It's
hard sometimes.
yeah, I can only
It's hard
imagine.
sometimes
Yeah,
because you know the effect that you can have,
yeah,
because you know the
yeah,
effect that you can have. But
yeah,
to constantly want that,
yep,
to have that's just, you
yeah.
know, that's hard.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's that's a beautiful segue back into your story of being out there. I mean, I tell you what, I've watched your documentary a couple times, and I find myself just so tight and taut as I watch you basically cathart on the side of the road, just emotions and pain, like just the agony you went through, and to hear you position that time of history, your moment as like the top, the zenith of what you pulled out, makes it even more human to understand that there's no pleasure without some inherent pain. That there's always going to be a balance between the two. And what I'm appreciating more than anything about our conversation right now is just how human you feel to me, because it's very natural for me to watch a documentary of a man who had the use of his legs taken away, and had to overcome addiction, and had to overcome, possibly some, social pressures as well, to definitely social pressures to achieve this incredible feat of pushing his wheelchair 3,100 miles. And it's natural for me to see someone who's done something incredible like that and put barriers between me and that person, between me and you, to go, oh, well, Gabriel's the exception. He's one of the ones that's born with that
Right.
drive, that innate belief, that determination. And in all of your speaking and your content that I've seen, is you've just continually reminded people, like, do not separate me from you. Like, I am as human comes, and I struggle just like you do. And I have great days and bad days, but it's important for you to remember that all of it's fine, but there is this zenith, there is this tip top that is possible, that you can tickle it, even just tickle or
Right.
get close to, and it'll not just knock onto your life, but the people around you.
Absolutely. That's that's the one thing, through this journey I've gotten to meet a lot of amazing human beings. And 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 that's the one thing that we shared, the one common thread that we all shared was the belief
Mm,
in ourselves and the belief in what's possible,
mm,
right? That's something that every person that I've spoken to that have accomplished extraordinary, unhuman like things,
mm,
that's the one, you know, um, the thing that we had in common was that we believed that it was possible.
mm.
Now, by no means did we think it was going to
Yeah,
be easy.
yeah.
I mean, you don't know. You don't know unless you do it, unless you try it. But we were willing to try it. We
Mm,
were willing to put ourselves out there. When I said in the film, I will roll until I can no longer roll anymore,
mm,
like I literally meant that. Unless I got hit by a truck or my arms fell off,
mm,
there was nothing that was going to stop me. And I I just, if I had one wish that I can grant every single person in this world, is to have that moment where there's a shift in your mind, where it goes from can I to I can,
mm,
right? And once you make that shift in your mind, game's over.
mm,
Game's over. You will do whatever it is necessary.
mm.
And it's going to be the most painful, the most brutal, the
Mm.
most trying.
Yeah.
And times that by 100. And then you may understand what you're going to go through to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
Like, I can sit here and tell you everything I went through mentally, physically, emotionally, and it would be really hard to comprehend, really hard to absorb it,
Yeah.
because it's just so far beyond what our everyday thought process and mindset is.
Hmm.
It's so far beyond that.
Tell me, so tell me about this team of 8 strangers from all different walks of life joining for one common purpose, which was to inspire others. I love that line at the end when you talk about your team that helped you along the journey. And what I appreciated more than anything was, you and correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, let me ask you: did you purposely did you want it to be a crew of people that all themselves had been going through challenges in their lives, that had been, kind of fighting their own demons? Was that really important to you for your journey?
Hell no. Hell no, man. I wanted a bunch of competent people that knew what the hell they were doing. You know what I'm saying? I was putting it all on the line, and I wanted people who were coherent and who had the same vision and who were inspired and who were motivated. Hell no, dude. All right? But let me preface it by saying I would never take it back.
Mm,
I would never say, you know what, even though we accomplished it, if I did it all over again, I would do it with other people. I would do it with the same exact crew except one person.
mm,
And I'm not going to get into that,
sure.
right? But one person, otherwise, I would go back and do it. One, because we did it. So I know that we could do it,
Yeah.
right? But other than that, um, um, it showed me that as as messed up as we were individually,
Mm,
when there's a common purpose, so great,
yeah.
right? And when there's one person that is the driving force behind it and believes in the mission with every ounce of their being, then everybody believes.
Yeah.
Everybody believes. And but it was the most difficult part of my whole journey was my crew. It's not even close. It's not even close, Brandon.
Wow. Well, I think that's there's a Margaret Mead, who's an American cultural anthropologist. Well, she's not with us today. She said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, for indeed it's the only thing that ever has. And I think that your journey and your team really epitomized that. There was that common purpose, that was that common uh, mission there. And I love your honesty in that answer. Just going, no, I would have taken Lance Armstrong's pit crew.
I'm tell- and and that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
it's we the role,
Mm,
right? That's the one thing, right? Anytime you want to achieve anything at that level, there is no way you could do it by yourself.
yeah.
There is no way you could do it by yourself.
Mm,
And it is up to the leader of the group
mm,
to make sure that everyone is looked after, everyone's feelings is taken into account.
mm,
There's just so many moving parts,
mm.
that you guys saw a nice happy film. Now, if you saw the footage, um, this film could have easily been one mess up after another. Even though we get to the end, but it was just one major problem after the other. But we wanted to tell a positive story. We wanted to tell an inspiring story, which it was, but by no means did the film depict
Yeah.
what really happened,
Sure. I'm sure it was
right?
Jerry. I'm sure it was Jerry Springer left and right every day.
it was, but no one lost focus. No one lost focus.
Yeah.
And that's what was the most important thing, you know. And it's like it's pretty hard, when you're waking up and you're fine, and every day you see this guy in a wheelchair going out in the middle of the freezing weather, in the middle of heat waves, in the middle of sandstorms, in the middle of tornadoes, hurricanes, rolling, using his arms to move us forward.
Yeah.
If that can't inspire you, and you're living with that person and you're seeing them do everything, and that can't inspire you, then you got no shot
Yeah.
in anything that you do in life,
Yeah.
because you're just empty. um and thank God I had a bunch of people who are very, very, very flawed, but also had wonderful hearts. Wonderful hearts.
And a part of that crew, your band of misfits, there was your nephew,
Yeah.
Chris. And I love the way that Lisa tells the story of the relationship between the two of you, how it unfolds, how there's the tension there. But it definitely seemed like necessary tension, that there had to be that kind of push and pull between the two of you for you both to walk away from that experience with a different, possibly deeper relationship.
Right.
So I would love to know that, and for those that haven't seen the documentary, there's really two heroes of the story in this documentary, in my judgment. There's Gabriel and his nephew Christopher. So, um, give me an update. How's he doing since that experience and since that journey?
um
Love to hear that.
yeah. uh well, today, as we speak, great.
Mm,
As we speak today,
yeah,
right? But this is a day-to-day thing,
sure.
you know um so but it has been brutal
Mm,
since the role. um like, it got as bad as it's ever been,
wow,
and we're talking about 6 months ago,
sure.
right? He's been Since that time, he's been in and out of 3 rehabs.
Mm,
um he's full blown. He got back into heroin.
mm,
um I mean, just bad as it's ever been, even worse than before we left,
wow.
even worse than before we left.
Mm,
Um, but right now, as we speak today, he just finished a 2 month inpatient rehab. He's been clean for right now 3.5 months. He's living in sober living.
fantastic.
Um, and he's doing great. He gained about 20 pounds. His face is clearing up.
Mm,
Um, but it was a rough go. It was a rough go, and that was the only part of the film, the whole experience, that really just left a sour taste in my, because everybody in the crew is doing so much better today than they were
yeah,
before, and but him. But for the last 3 months, he's been doing great.
yeah.
He's been doing great, but it's been tough on the family. It's been really rough on the family.
Yeah, I can imagine, and hopefully he doesn't feel pressure after kind of the way he was depicted in, really overcoming. It seemed like some demons on the journey. Hopefully there isn't pressure because of the film, like, you know, that he puts on himself for anything
You
like
know,
that.
I wish he connected with the film more. I wish
Mm,
he would, anytime he felt bad, anytime he felt weak, that he'd go to the film, listen to his words, listen to what he was saying,
yeah,
you know, seeing what state of mind he was in at that time, reminding him, that you have it in you to do it. But not pressure, maybe, obviously, self pressure,
sure,
of course, of failing.
right.
Right.
Yeah, and as you know, and many know, especially a lot of men in the men's work we have here at the Mankind Project, is addiction is just another beast. It's just a whole other beast that doesn't. It's not predictable, and it doesn't come in, you know, a predictable path. it's it's
Right.
different for every single person that goes through it.
And with listen, the one thing I want to say about addiction, listen, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor, or I don't have the proper words or the terminologies. I go from my experience. And when you're in the midst of addiction, and when I talk about addiction, I'm talking about, like, this is, you live and you breathe it. This is your life. This is what your life consists of, is this addiction,
Yeah,
and it's not consumed by it. um for me, that was the greatest force in my life. My addiction was the greatest force in my life.
yeah.
It was greater than the force and the love I had for my family,
Mm,
for myself, for anything. And I was fortunate enough to be able to find the greater force to pull me out of it,
mm,
right? And that greater force was the role.
mm.
And that's why I didn't need to go to rehab. I didn't go through withdrawals. I didn't have to detox,
Yeah,
because I found something that was greater than what I was in. And I think that's one of the most difficult things about addiction, is that it's the most powerful force in your life
yeah,
when you're in the midst of it, that you know for me, it's almost something short of a miracle for you, for a person to get out of it.
mm,
Because all the prayers and all the love
yeah,
doesn't do it. It doesn't do it.
yeah.
You would hope it would,
Sure.
but it just, the reality of it, it doesn't. At least it didn't for me.
Yeah,
And I just hope that people, just they don't give up.
yeah.
Because it's such a terrible place to be.
Mm,
Um, that that they keep fighting through it. They
yeah,
keep fighting through it. Just
yeah,
chip away, right? You chip away. How long did it take for them to create Mount Rushmore? It was just one big piece of rock, and little by little they chipped away at it, chipped away for years and years.
yeah.
And then this beautiful piece of art,
Wow.
and it's the same thing, but when you deal with addiction.
Yeah. I like that. I've never heard it positioned that way. Like, so in my mind, what's coming to me is that, this great force being addiction, it almost needs to be replaced by a different force, an even greater force. And it sounds like the role became that greater force for you to say, hey, well, you know what? Like, this is where I'm going to put my energy, my identity, I dare say, into this now new greater force. Um,
And once you do that, the other force becomes irrelevant. It really does. It's not even a thought. It's not even an obstacle anymore,
mm,
right? Because you're so focused. And some people say, well, you went from one extreme to the other, literally from one extreme to the other. And say, hey, listen, if that gets you out of it,
mm,
then by all means go for it.
yeah,
A lot of people say, well, that's not healthy. Well, you know what? It was really healthy for me
yeah,
to go from coke and crystal meth every day for 5 years to being a physical freak. You know, that's at both ends of the spectrum.
mm,
But I think not everyone needs that,
yeah.
right? But I needed that.
Mm.
I needed that.
Yeah, it worked for you. It doesn't mean it's going to
Work
work for everyone, but you found what worked for you. And some people may be on their own path and journey, and their path may not make sense to anyone else around them,
right,
but it's working for them, and that's what's
right,
important.
right. But what I do say, which is across the board, not just me, is that force is
Mm,
to find that greater force
yeah,
that can encapsulate your life, that can
mm,
take over your life. Um and you know yeah.
yeah. What's that force for you now, having completed the role and many subsequent roles after that? What is it for you now?
Well, for me, it's the most important statistic in life, is How many people have you helped along the way on your
Yeah.
journey?
Mm.
That is my force. That's my driving force.
Yeah.
And how you do it, man, it's like, physically my body's broken. My body is broken.
Mm.
I am beat up.
Mm.
I'm in pain every day. I sacrificed a lot. A lot I sacrificed, you know, um, but the sacrifice was worth it because I know I've changed people's lives.
Wow.
Um, but now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's next? What else? What's next? What can I do? But the end goal is,
Mm.
how many people can I affect positively
Yeah.
in my journey,
Yeah.
along my journey? That's to me the most important statistic
Yeah.
of all. I don't care.
Mm.
It's not about how much money you have or how big your house is or how many
Mm.
cars you have, or how much jewelry you have.
Yeah.
It's how many people have you helped along the way. And that's my driving force right now.
Wow. I know your faith is very important to you. It's shown throughout the documentary, and as an organization, we're lucky to have men from many different backgrounds of faith and religion, and those that aren't, those that are. I'm curious. Say there is a God, and you get to the pearly gates. What do you want him to say to you?
Okay. Well, there is a God for sure. It's funny they said that because I was raised in a Roman Catholic, in a hardcore Roman Catholic household, right? And literally, when they were interviewing my parents, and I leave it to God and I leave it to the Virgin Mary, like no joke. Like that is how they lived their life. They put their lives in the hands of Jesus and Virgin Mary, and I grew up that way. And then I got older, and then I started having my own thoughts and feelings, and I am not religious anymore. I am spiritual,
Mm.
right? God is a very important part of my life.
Mm.
I just don't really, you know, um, tend to agree with a lot of organized religion,
Right.
you know, and they're all good and everything. But I found my way to spirituality.
Yeah.
And you know, I want God to say, you batted over 300 and you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because if I only affect 3 out of every 10 people, I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you
Absolutely.
think 3 out of 10 people, well, that's not a lot. Yeah, it is. If
Yeah.
you add them up, that's a lot of people. And I want to get into God's Hall of Fame of baseball.
That's poignant, that's pertinent, and thank you for sharing. How your relationship with your faith in God has changed through your journey. I know it changes. It's ever evolving and changing in my life, and it's ever evolving and changing, I'm sure, in many people's lives as well. And mate, I mean, I've got a litany of questions, but my heart, my soul, my mind is just completely just filled to the brim right now with getting to spend this time with you. And man, I'm just so grateful. The whole reason we put this together was to make the human experience more relatable,
Right.
and to help people understand that there's no cut and dry, clear linear path in anyone's life, because we can't always control what's going to happen to us, but we do have the ability to pick up the pen
Right.
and become the writer of our own story. And thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your rawness, and thank you for showing us and proving to all of us listening and sharing this time with you that truth and vulnerability truly do equal power.
They
And
do,
so,
and I just want to say this. You know, look, the greatest gift that we are given is our will, right? That I believe that's the greatest gift we are born with, our will. And we all have it,
mm,
you know? And at what degree do we, do we um exercise that will, right? Is up to each and every one of us. And for me, it's not so much about what you've accomplished, what one accomplishes. To me, it's more about how do you respond when something happens to you? You know, you can go through life and live a happy life and never accomplish anything extraordinary, and you can still have a good life, right? But how do you respond when something happens to you? I think is the most important thing, the most character trait that a person can have. Not about because everything's good when everything's going good.
Yeah.
There's nothing to complain about. There's nothing to change. But when you're put in circumstances where your whole world is turned upside down, that is the most important time in your life and as a human being to grow and to be an example. And right, so it's never what happens. It's never about what happens to you. It's about what you do about it. It's never. And I know that can sound very disconnected or not nice when well it didn't matter that I got into an accident and I'm paralyzed now. It doesn't matter. It happened. But what am I going to do about it? And that's, to me, that's the most important thing that people should really just keep in mind to focus on is don't focus on what happens, focus on what you do about it. And if you focus on that, a lot of good stuff happens. A lot of good stuff happens in your life.
Well, that's a beautiful reminder, I think, for me and others to pick up Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl when he talks about that, we have a choice over our reactions. And, a man who survived the concentration camps of Auschwitz and Dachau. And another reminder is for everyone to go and check out Gabriel's website, gabrielcordell.com. Check out his documentary, Roll With Me. It's a phenomenal story. If you're just looking for that little bit of hope, just something to light a fire in your belly to seize the pen and start writing your own story and start to take control of the path of your life, I strongly recommend you check that out. And I have to ask you before I let you go, Gabriel, as an actor, who is it for you? Who's the dude or the woman or the person that sets the bar that you go, yes, like that if I could star with, replace the role of, like, who is that person?
Well, I mean, obviously for a woman, it's it's Meryl Streep.
Oh,
That's for the woman. That's a given,
of
right?
course.
But for me as an actor, I mean, I guess the easy ones is to say Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, but I appreciate Daniel Day-Lewis. I think he's just phenomenal, just as good as an actor could ever get.
Yeah.
And it's it's a wonderful medium, and it's an opportunity to play other people and to have other feelings and things like that. But if I had a choice, I would be the Daniel Day-Lewis of actors. That's, to me, he's the epitome of phenomenal.
Sets the bar, doesn't he? With the method acting, and he really sinks.
I mean, just the stories I've heard, is just unreal. And let me tell you, it's not an easy thing to be vulnerable on screen like that, and to be liberal with your physical movement, and to be free emotionally.
Yeah.
It's right on the spot. It's a hard skill. It's not and to memorize all those lines. That's my greatest fear. I just finished working on All Rise, which is on CBS, and in season 2 I have a recurring role, and I have no problem sitting in front of 500 people and speaking. I have no problem in front of cameras, but gosh, man, the fear of forgetting your lines when they say action and you just go blank.
Yeah.
That's my greatest fear as an actor.
Yeah.
It's my greatest fear as an actor. I will be as raw as I need to be, but if I forget my lines, forget it.
Yeah.
Devastation.
there,
Devastation.
there you go, guys, gals, non-binary pals that have joined us this evening. There you go. That is further proof that, we're all human, having a human experience. We all have our fears, and it's such a beautiful reminder to let's just take some of the pressure off ourselves today, now, from this point, to know that, hey, step by step, it was push by push that Gabriel's wheelchair made it across the nation, and it's step by step that we move towards the direction that we want to take our lives, whether or not we know what it is right now. So I want to thank you all for joining us for this episode 51 of the Mankind Podcast. I'm so grateful for all of you that have been here and sharing your feedback on the live. Before I let you go, Gabriel, how can we support you on your mission going forward? And what are you up to?
Just right now, main thing is to stay healthy. I mean, like really, that's the main thing, is to stay healthy and get through this coronavirus thing. But just I'm out there, hopefully, once they open up the country, be able to continue traveling. I feel good with my acting. I have a feeling that, something really good and big is around the corner. Again, right? Something I always felt. Right? In acting, just like in my life, that I knew that there's something that is great, that can happen. And so just working towards that, and trying to stay alive as long as I can, honestly.
Mate, no more roles. No more big roles, please, for the sake of all those that you can help and support. I think that you have enough power with your wisdom, with your experience, and with your gift to share a positive message that you can give your shoulders a break. That's just my personal feelings.
Just one last thing. Sometimes we can't always accomplish what we want in our lives, right? Just because of circumstances. You can't always accomplish what you want to accomplish. But it doesn't mean that you can't find something else that can take its place, that can have as big of an impact, if not bigger. I was supposed to do the trifecta, right? That was my goal, to do the trifecta, was to roll across America. I roll as far as I can across America, do Pikes Peak, which is roll as high as I can up America, which I did. And the third leg of it was supposed to be, I'm going to roll in the most extreme conditions that I possibly can in America, which was Death Valley.
Death Valley, yeah.
Right? And because my body, I started training for it last summer, and my body was just like, you can't. The cost would have been too much. And that was difficult, because I wanted it so bad. The desire to roll across Death Valley was just as great as me rolling across America. But my body, and that's a difficult thing. And just, and that's that's hopefully, when people have a dream, and for whatever reason circumstances don't allow them to accomplish that dream, to not let it bring you down, but just to find something that's equal in the sense of what you wanted to get out of it. It's just really important, because I went through that. It was really, really difficult to deal with that, and not being able to finish what I started. And I felt like a failure. Like, I don't get to finish. What does that mean? That I don't want it bad enough? That I'm not willing to put the work in? It just that wasn't the case. But those are tough struggles that, for an addict, you can easily find yourself in a tailspin. And those are the moments, right? Those are the moments where you have to be as strong or stronger than you've ever been.
Yeah.
Hey, before we let you go, we just want to let you know that we've been getting some incredible feedback and response for episode 13 of the podcast, Looking Beyond Men and Masculinity with Alex Gabby, where we spoke about his film of the same name, Beyond Men and Masculinity. Now, we mentioned in the episode that there are going to be virtual screenings as well as live Q&As with people that were featured in the documentary, and that's going to be on April 15th and May 6th. You still have a chance to get tickets, although they are being swept up. You can find the links to those in the show notes, but in the meantime, here is an audio clip from the documentary. Enjoy.
Being a boy comes with a certain set of rules. How do you be one of the boys?
Crying was very looked down upon.
And your father was?
My father was front and center with that, yes.
They have all these feelings and there's nowhere for these feelings to go. They know it's considered a feminine weakness.
Boys work very, very hard to achieve a masculine identity. But that identity can be taken from them.
Patriarchy is a deviously clever system.
Men learn to escape by moving from shame to grandiosity. We teach them to disconnect from their feelings. We teach them to disconnect from vulnerability.
Vulnerability is a missing link that men need to be truly powerful.
To be a man means to be in the superior position. So any move toward democracy, which is toward equality, becomes a threat to manhood. And if manhood is threatened, violence is imminent. There's a puzzle that we have to figure out.
What's happening right now is an opportunity for men to be human.
To be completely trusted and vulnerable and not be judged is what helps me to becoming this new human being.
Kindness and caring and loving, and how about those be the alpha traits?
We're trying to figure out how to be fully ourselves and fully connected at the same time. It's the only thing that will really make us happy.
We're really disrupting some core foundational elements upon which our society is built, and that feels dangerous.
This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. I have been your host, Brandon Clift, and I personally want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. And of course, I want to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you make it a heck of a lot easier for us to let men out there in the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. Special thanks, of course, goes to my incredible team, Marketing and Communications Director Boyson Hodgson, producer and editor of this episode, Michael Russo, who makes me sound so much more intelligent than I actually am, so of course, special kudos goes there. And if you've been enjoying the music throughout this episode and all of our episodes, check out Jim, Donovan, and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So my friend, pick up the pen and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.